And I think, yeah, card games just... Is it Shovel Knight Cookie Cutter? Hey! This one goes out to Yacht Club Games and Warzone Prince. What a good product. I just want to say, I was super excited when that came out over 10 years ago. And it's fun that, I started this series with that subject in mind of, when something hits the 10-year mark and what that can mean, even if you're not big on time passing by super fast. I loved seeing that Shovel Knight Cookie Cutter pop up pretty fast in Shovel Knight's lifespan, and I'm still a big fan today, and I'm looking forward to their future games. Just Yacht Club in general, they've yet to make a bad one. And knock on wood, I think they're going to continue prospering. So, I play Yu-Gi-Oh! Once a week on Wednesday, and there's been quite a few conversations that me and the community have been having about Yu-Gi-Oh!'s longevity. Kind of similar to, Yacht Club Games and their success with Shovel Knight. They found a good footing there, and they're able to obviously expand upon it afterward. The thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! That I think is interesting is when we've brought up this discussion, shoutouts to Cool Dude, who's been, a great member for quite a while now. He was there since basically the very beginning of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Broadcast. And me and him and a few others have talked about what makes for a good product, what makes for and this can be done in business meetings. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is owned by Konami, and so the question is that the board of directors, obviously Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a big hit. It's amongst the big three in trading card games, Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And we've talked about other toys like Beyblade and Bakugan, and Beyblade was also a big success, and they still make them. Bakugan was an interesting case because it tried to follow the momentum of Beyblade, but I think, and we've talked about this, one interesting aspect is that Bakugan has way less creative skill expression. Just in general, it's just how the game is. It's not as fighting game-esque as Beyblades. I think that's kind of the genius of Beyblades is you build your tops, and the tops have these different listed stats. And whether the stats are super accurate or not, it still was kind of generalized well. I always loved using Drasil-based Beyblade stuff, and that was more defense-oriented. And you could kind of see it. You could kind of see the sturdiness of aspects of using Drasil stuff for your Beyblade. That stuff's killer. And the whole point of this conversation, this whole topic that I want to talk about is Yu-Gi-Oh! Became part of the big three through just great ingenuity, and it had such great creative skill expression in its depth as a card game. And I actually don't think it gets talked about enough how much a game like Yu-Gi-Oh! Helps child development skills with strategy. Obviously, kids learning chess, that's big. Kids learning Go, that's big, for sure. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is its own interesting dynamic. And the thing is, with Pokemon's got the powerhouse of the games, and Pokemon just went guns a-blazing ASAP with, again, the games, anime, card game, and multiple spin-offs ASAP. Magic was the trailblazer. Magic established basically what a competitive trading card game is. Obviously there can be exceptions of what was developing into that, but in terms of big mainstream trading card game where you make different deck styles and play styles to compete against others, Magic is the forefather, and it's cool that Magic stuck around as well as Pokemon. The thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it had an anime, it had a manga, but the thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it didn't have one of those two big striking aspects, whether again it was the Trailblazer or it just went on a giant marketing explosion with all these different forms to, you know, have the media in case of Pokemon. And I think what added to Yu-Gi-Oh's longevity and staying power is the game itself. And it's not just a lot of fun for a kid and as an adult, but there was such a fun element of developing neural pathways as a kid. I mean, you're not realizing you're doing this. I mean, unless your parents like directly say that, they're both like doctors in psychology saying, "Good job, son. You just realized that you can give Axe of Despair to Battle Ox and hit over your opponent's Vorse Raider. That neural pathway will play off in the long run when you realize that you should overcome obstacles by getting stronger." It's the cool part about Yu-Gi-Oh is that it's that sense of discovery. You have just these, you know, giant piles of cards. You make this collection. I'm talking about little kids. Like, I got into Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean, right when it came out. So it's starting apex for me. You know, we're talking around 2001. You know, like this is, you know, my 2001 was kindergarten and first grade for me. And that, the big thing is, you know, with some toys, you'd be like, oh, I want that action figure, right? You get the action figure, you might play for it for a little bit, and you might be done with it. It might be on your shelf for the rest of the time, you know? Okay, but hold on. There's a lot of depth here. Solar beam? There you go. But in the case of like, see, I like these, like, you know, plushies and stuff in terms of like putting them on a shelf, or in this case, a keyboard. When it comes to marketing towards kids, you know, some of those toy companies, if they make the sale, they make the sale to them. But the cool part about Yu-Gi-Oh is you don't just get the action figure or toy and you're done playing with it for a bit. The fun part also is that you'll get Dark Magician. You'll try out Dark Magician in a deck, but then all these other cards come out and you find out that, you know, these other cards have great synergy with Dark Magician. Obviously, like Dark Magician Girl works if you have multiple Dark Magician in the graveyard and she gets stronger. You know, and then especially a monster like Dark Magician, there's so many other cards that came out that support him. But that's the fun part too, is, and especially in the early days of the 2000s, like there was Pojo and the internet, but there was such a big sense of childhood discovery with you and your friends about what combos with what. For example, in Yu-Gi-Oh, you get your opponents down to 0 life points, they lose. You attack with your attack points directly if there's no monsters in the way. The fun part is there's monsters like Jurai Gumo, which has 2,200 attack, and he's easy to summon. The drawback is that if you attack with him, you risk losing half your life points. But as a kid, you can actually find ways to recognize, oh, I don't even have to attack with this guy. Like, he can just be sitting here with 2,200 attack, and the average monster with like 1,700 attack at this level can't hit over him. In fact, if I use Rings of Magnetism, they have to hit Jurai Gumo, and if they don't hit over 1,700 attack, then they're still not going to hit my life points. Stuff like that happened all the time, like as a kid. And even if it was that specific combo, Yu-Gi-Oh provided so many different outlets of skill expression that I actually just don't think people realize how much that plays into, you know, how they are successful today. That type of strategy building, those type of neural pathways as a kid, like you start to recognize that stuff as an adult. What goes with what's a creative way to overcome a challenge? Here's your toolbox. What are you gonna build to get over this? And it's a lot of fun. And Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not that it was deceptive, but it's so funny that you make a series about people summoning monsters and the kids are gonna start being engineers. They're gonna start putting these pieces together, and that's so much fun that you have a 40 to 60 card deck. And now it's like, as a kid, there's that sense of fun discovery of what works with what effectively. And, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Again is still making cards. And what's cool is, like monsters like Dark Magician, Red Eyes Black Dragon, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Exodia, they still make cards supporting those legacy monsters. And so it's cool that you can keep those cards around and have things to support them. And I can't stress enough about, if you want a super successful, I mean, it's trading cards, toy line, just merchandising, you know, I think there is such a great high skill ceiling from just even having a few options in your game. And, you know, it's like I said, in Beyblade, you customize your Beyblade and you spin the top in the arena. And with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's even by just a few sets in, there were so many cards that there were so many different ways to build a deck that you wanted to play. And if your friend kept beating you with their Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then you recognized that you could burn away with your spell cards directly at their life points, then you put like 2 Magic Cylinder in to try to beat them next time. There really is a fun aspect to that, quote, playground Yu-Gi-Oh! Aesthetic. And I think we bring that into the modern day where, you know, when you do play a trading card game or a fighting game, there's just that tenacity that you build to keep at it and find different ways to overcome challenges. I love Mondays.